Another thing that I wish I would have known when I was coming up and going through the workforce and thinking about how do I not have to work to 65, 67 years old. I wish I would have known, and this is deep, your money is not worth much if you don't share it. And unfortunately, that's the sad truth about how these things go. What I found out later in my career that if I don't put money into these buckets, into these pockets, every penalty that there is hits me. And it's not even like a true like legal penalty. It's just that you get penalized for not letting people share your money. Let me give you an example. If you put $100,000 in your drawer at your house, okay, you're like, I got $100,000. If you don't have any plans on like taking that $100,000, buying a bunch of stock when the stock market is down, buying a house or two to rent or flip when the housing market is down, if you just leave that $100,000 in your drawer, inflation eats it up. So if there's a 3% inflation hike, that next year your $100,000 is kind of worth $97,000. So what do I mean by share your money? Well, if you put it in a 401k where some big fancy rich guys can use your money to lend out all over the world, you might get 10% back. In good years, you might get 15 or 20% back. I can't use the money. I have to let them use the money. You understand what I'm saying? If I put money, that same 100,000 into a 401k and then try to take it out early, I get penalized for that, 10% or whatever it is. So I wish I would have known earlier in my career to take my money, any extra money, and put it in little pockets. Because the only way that you get to benefit from those pockets is if you share that money. If I put some money in the HSA, all right, I get the benefit on some tax-free money to buy things for health. If I put it in a 401k, I get the benefit from compound interest when I decide to retire at whatever age. Even if I put it in a savings account, it's like, okay, if you put this in a savings account, we're going to give you like less than 1% interest or whatever they're going to give you, that $100,000. And then at the end of the year, you have to file taxes and say, hey, on this $100,000, I made $500. The government is going to say, okay, now you got to put that $500 on your income, file it as a tax. So I wish that earlier in my career, what I'm dropping on you right now, somebody would have told me and would have made me listen. I don't know how you would have made me listen, but I wish they would have somehow made me listen that my money isn't worth much at all if I don't have a plan for that money. And that plan does not include letting someone use my money. And let's just say, going back to that first scenario that I said, if you put the $100,000 in your drawer and you say, you know what, they can say inflation all they want. I got this 100,000 here. Well, 10 years later, that 100,000, I don't know, is going to be worth a lot less. Go back and look at what type of car you could have bought with that $100,000 10 years ago, and the cost of that same car now. And that'll give you an idea of how much your money has lost value. So if there's one thing that I, would like to tell a lot of you, take that money, understand at your job, or talk to somebody and say, hey, if you had X amount of dollars, and it does not have to be $100,000 and be 10,000, be 5,000, what would you do? What would you do with that money? And the answer should be put it into some buckets. At minimum, put it into some buckets, some CDs, some 401ks, some type of index funds or bonds, purchase you some gold. I don't know. I'm not a financial planner, but I do know that if you take that money and sock it away in that drawer, that money is just going to dwindle up. I would also go out. You guys all have access to the internet. See what $100,000 today, the worth of it, say 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. Just type it in and say, what could if I have $100,000 today and I could buy, these things, how much would these things cost me 50 years ago, 60 years ago? So just take a look. All right. It's your boy JB. Talk to you later.